Hi, my name's Tom, and I'm a mental health therapist that specializes in working with the LGBT community. And today I want to talk about one of my favorite topics, traumatic invalidation. Okay, so traumatic invalidation is not unique to the LGBTQ community, but the LGBTQ community is unique in the fact that nearly everyone in the community has experienced traumatic invalidation in one form or another. It's one of those things that I love to talk about with clients because it resonates with so many people, and it's exciting to see the way that it resonates with them and gives them words to describe something that they've experienced their entire lives. Okay, so what is traumatic invalidation? Traumatic invalidation is worse than normal invalidation. Traumatic invalidation involves severe invalidation of aspects of our lives that are important to us, or it can be repetitive invalidation of something important to us. So some examples that are specific to the LGBT community would be getting rejected after coming out, or being told that your sexual orientation or your gender identity is just a phase. There are also forms of traumatic invalidation that aren't unique to the LGBT community, but are more common within the LGBT community. So, for example, one thing we know is that queer and trans folks, unfortunately, are more likely to be sexually assaulted. And a lot of survivors of sexual assault aren't believed or listened to when they tell others what happened. That's absolutely an example of traumatic invalidation. Some other things that I commonly see with clients, especially with older clients, survivors of the AIDS epidemic experience traumatic invalidation in numerous ways, especially early on when people weren't acknowledging the fact that there was an epidemic happening, including, all the way up to the president and the federal government. And so that's traumatic invalidation as well. Traumatic invalidation can happen in our significant relationships. So being ghosted or having a significant relationship suddenly end, that can be traumatic invalidation. It can also come from medical providers, doctors, therapists, when they don't listen to us, or they don't believe what we're telling them, or they don't validate what we're telling them. So traumatic invalidation can come from so many different sources, and it's different from normal invalidation in the fact that it has long-lasting impacts and can create long-lasting harm in our lives. For one, after we experience traumatic invalidation, it increases our sensitivity to other occurrences of normal invalidation. So if you notice that you're more reactive to invalidation or quick to become defensive compared to your peers, especially compared to straight and cis peers, that could be evidence of some of your experiences with traumatic invalidation. Traumatic invalidation can also cause us to have a stronger reaction to things that come up in a relationship. So when a partner says or does something that's invalidating, it can cause that to kind of spiral out into an argument, and we reflect back on it, and maybe we said things that we later regret, or we look back on it and think, gosh, why did I make such a big deal out of that? It really doesn't matter. Well, the answer could be you're a survivor of traumatic invalidation in one form or another. So when we respond to traumatic invalidation, what we often do is make it worse. So the normal and natural reaction to traumatic invalidation is to try to get validation. Makes sense? So we might argue with the person that invalidated us. We might present facts to them, or really just double down on trying to get them to believe us, to agree with us, or to at least acknowledge our perspective. It's a really great effort, but what it results in is just more invalidation. So one of the first things we have to do when we're experiencing invalidation, especially if we're experiencing traumatic invalidation, is recognize that the invalidator isn't capable of providing us with the validation that we need. So going back to them to try to get that validation is just going to result in more harm to ourselves. Instead, what we need to do is reach out to somebody that can provide validation. Reaching out to a partner or a friend, could even be a close coworker or colleague, somebody that really values you, loves you, and appreciates you. Those are the kinds of people that can provide validation. So when we're invalidated by one person, we can go and get that validation from another person. In lieu of depending on other people, we can also try to validate ourselves. And that can be as simple as reminding ourselves of the reasons why we're right or why we're valid in that situation. Going back through the situation and telling ourselves what happened, what we're sure of, what we know, what we experienced. You can do that in your head or you can journal. Another great alternative is to go out and do something unrelated that is validating. So if you're invalidated in one form or in one sense, it might help to go do something that you're good at, something where you're going to get that external validation either from yourself, from other people, or just simply doing the activity. Traumatic invalidation is hurtful, even when we respond to it in a way that's as constructive as possible. It's a painful experience, but we don't have to let it take control. There are things that we can do. So I encourage you to reach out to people that can provide validation, try to self-validate, and do something that provides validation for yourself. It's not easy, but it does help.